Everybody, what's going on? It's Brian. I'm here in the garage today and it is thundering and lightning outside, so I thought today was a great opportunity to work on the John Deere D140 lawn tractor that I have. And recently I've noticed that the front left tire has been consistently leaking, and I pump it up with air and it seems to be fine for a while, and then it's flat again when I go take it out of the shed. So I decided to do some research and find out what parts I would need to replace at least the tire, maybe the whole wheel assembly. So I was doing research and I actually came across a set of 2 entire wheel and tire assemblies for a pretty decent price on sale. And so I purchased those. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how I went about replacing the wheel and tire for the front tires of the John Deere D140 tractor. So let's check it out.
It's a beautiful afternoon and you decide to cut the grass. So you break out the old tractor and realize you have a flat tire. This is extremely frustrating. I decided that I'd try to replace this myself. So I did some quick research online and found a compatible wheel and tire that matched the dimensions of my existing one. I was also happy to see that it came with its own set of new hardware. To start out, I pushed in the hydrostatic transmission bypass rod so that the tractor wouldn't just roll freely. Next, I engaged the parking brake. Finally, to ensure that the tractor won't roll, I put a chock behind both of the rear tires. Now that the tractor isn't moving, I used my floor jack to lift the front left side of the tractor off the ground. I'm not entirely sure if I picked the right location, but it seemed to work fine. The goal is to lift it up enough so that the tire can spin freely. For a little extra added safety, I also placed a jack stand under the tractor. The 4 pieces of hardware that came with the tire were 2 flat washers, 1 spacer, and 1 E-clip. I made sure to set these aside so I didn't lose them. To gain access to remove the hardware, I first attempted to remove this soft yellow dust cap. As you can see, I had some difficulty removing it. I then tried to remove it with a flathead screwdriver. As you can clearly see, this wasn't working well for me either. At this point, I was extremely annoyed. So I had somewhat of an epiphany, and I thought that if I could heat up the cap, that might make it more pliable. So I went to my wife's dressing room and got the hairdryer. I just moved the hot air all around the cap itself for about a minute or so. While it was still warm, I was able to remove it a lot easier. Next, I grabbed a rag and just cleaned off all of the grease and junk from the axle and hardware. To begin removing the wheel, I took a flathead screwdriver and placed it in the visible groove on the E-clip to remove the clip. Be aware that this clip may go flying off somewhere like a spring. Next, I grabbed the rag again and I used it to slide off the spacer that is on the outer part of the axle. With all of the external mounting hardware removed, I was able to easily slide the wheel off. I took another rag and used it to clean off old grease and debris from the axle shaft. I then took a flathead screwdriver and used it to clean out any debris that may be in the groove for the E-clip I removed earlier. The last piece of hardware that I removed was the flat washer. Once again, as you can see, this was not as simple of a task as I thought it would be. Every time I thought I had it, it would slip back again. For this, I used my flathead screwdriver and a pair of needle-nosed pliers. Eventually, I was able to remove that stupid washer. Again, I wanted to clean out the old grease and any debris, so I used my screwdriver to get out what I could. I also grabbed my rag and cleaned it all off one more time before I put the new hardware on. I then applied some general purpose grease to the entire axle shaft. I then slid on the 2 new flat washers that came with my new wheel. Finally, I added a little more grease. Next, I grabbed the new wheel and carefully slid it onto the axle shaft. I then slid on the new spacer that came with the new wheel. However, I noticed that it seemed too thick and I couldn't see the groove for the E-clip anymore. To resolve this issue, I simply reused the old spacer as it was still in good condition. This next part ended up taking way more time than it ever should have. As you can see, I tried using needle-nosed pliers to put the E-clip back in. This definitely tested my patience quite a bit. Eventually, I was able to get it to seat with a pair of channel locks. I then gave the wheel a good tug to see if it moved back and forth on the axle shaft. It's important that the wheel sits securely and doesn't move back and forth. To finish this side, I grabbed the hairdryer again to soften up the dust cap. I then slid the dust cap back on. Now that the new wheel has been installed, I removed the jack stand, lowered the jack, pulled out the 2 chocks behind the back tires, and disengaged the parking brake. In the video, you saw me apply grease to the axle shaft. An alternate and recommended method of greasing this is to use the built-in grease fittings on the inside of the wheel. Simply attach your grease gun to the fitting and push down to securely attach, then squeeze the trigger to apply grease. All in all, this was a relatively simple job to complete. After installation, I made sure to inflate the tires to the recommended PSI rating. Here you can see my tractor driving just fine on its new wheels and tires.